All right, hey guys. Today we are covering the very first section of Chapter 1. Chapter 1, Section 1. And today we're talking about converting fractions into decimals or vice versa, decimals into fractions. So the learning target actually says I can convert a fraction. A fraction might be like 1/3 or a mixed number such as 2 1/5 into a terminating or repeating decimal, or a terminating or repeating decimal into a fraction. Hopefully by the end of these two sections you'll have no problem with this. We are going to use our calculators for this, so it really should not be very difficult. It's really just a matter of learning how to use a few buttons on your calculator that maybe you have not used before. To start this, we're going to look at different types of decimals. Not everybody knows that there are 3 different types of decimals. They are terminating decimals, repeating decimals, and the ever popular non-terminating, non-repeating decimal. Those are the 3 types of decimals, and we're going to look at each one and how they convert or don't convert into a fraction or back and forth. First, let's look at what each of these decimals look like. What is a terminating decimal? Basically, a terminating decimal is a decimal that stops. Technically, it's a decimal with a decimal expansion that ends in all zeros. But I like to think of it more as it's a decimal that stops. That's what the word terminate means. It means it stops. An example of this might be like 2.3. 2.3 is a terminating decimal. It stops after the 3. Now technically they say it ends in all zeros because you could write 2.300 and you could tack on as many zeros as you want, and that does not change the decimal. It's still 2.3. But I kind of prefer to think of it as a decimal that stops or terminates. All terminating decimals I said that wrong. All whole numbers can be written with a 0 following the decimal point. Like you can take the whole number 7 and you can write it as 7.0. That makes a whole number, even though it doesn't kind of look like it has a decimal in it, a whole number like 7 is a terminating decimal. In fact, all whole numbers are terminating decimals. But so are lots of fractions. And let me just give you a couple examples. The fraction 3/10, that would be a terminating decimal. That is equivalent to 0.3, and then it stops, right? Or a mixed number like 7 1/5. That is a terminating decimal. That would be 7.2. Notice that the whole number part, the 7, comes on the left of the decimal, and the 1/5 comes on the right of the decimal. The fraction comes after the decimal. The whole number comes before the decimal. All right, so those are terminating decimals. Let's move on. What are repeating decimals? Repeating decimals are a decimal that has an expansion that repeats the same digit or block of digits without end. I'll get to what that looks like in just a second. A bar indicates the repeating digit or block of digits. So an example of that might be like the very common fraction 1/3. 1/3 is equal to 0.3333. If you type it into your calculator, you'd see it's 0.3333 repeating. And that, of course, can be written with a bar over the 3. Since the 3 repeats, you can place a bar over it, and that the bar tells you, hey, this digit repeats over and over and over again. A slightly more difficult example might be like 7/15. 7/15 would look like this. Now the 4 does not repeat, but the 6 does. So when you write it with a bar, the bar goes over the 6, but not the 4. And one more. (49 over 33) looks like 1.4848484848. Now you've got 2 digits repeating, so your bar goes over both digits. All right? One thing I'd like you to be able to do is convert back and forth from using bar notation to writing out the decimal without the bar. All right, last up we have the third type of decimal, the non-terminating, non-repeating decimal. What does that look like? You know, there are about 3 types that we'll talk about in this class. There are those that have a pattern, but not a repeating pattern. It might look like this. So this decimal has a pattern. It's 2.010010001. We can predict what the rest of it will be. We will predict how it keeps going, but the problem is it does not have a repeating pattern that you could put a bar over and say, hey, this chunk repeats over and over again. Also, it might have no recognizable pattern. You know a number like this. Numbers such as pi has no recognizable pattern, yet it keeps going on and on. It does not terminate, and it does not repeat. There's another number like this as well, some square roots. Like the square root of 5 would be a number that's just like pi. It would be a decimal that just continues on. It's non-terminating, and it's non-repeating. So those are kind of your 3 types of non-terminating, non-repeating. Those that have a pattern, but not a repeating pattern, pi, and some square roots. All right, all fractions can be converted into decimals. Did you know that? Every fraction can be converted into a decimal. When they are converted into a decimal, they will be one of 2 types of decimals. They will either become a terminating decimal or a repeating decimal. Every fraction either becomes a terminating decimal or a repeating decimal. And every terminating or repeating decimal could be changed back into a fraction. To convert a fraction into a decimal, this is real easy. We're just going to do it on our calculator. You want to divide the top number, the numerator, by the bottom number, the denominator. You want to pay attention on your calculator. Does it look like it terminates, or does it look like there's a repeating pattern? Most of the time, fairly obvious. And if it repeats, I'd like you to use a bar to show it. You know, an example might be the fraction 1/2. On your calculator, if you did 1 divided by 2, you'd find out that equals 0.5. It terminates, so that's your final answer. Whereas if you took 1/3, and on your calculator you did 1 divided by 3, you'd get something that looks like this. Well, this now is a repeating decimal, so you would want to change it and use bar notation and have it look like that. That's really your two options. Let's do a few examples. 5/8 is our first example. So the first thing I should recognize is that fraction bar means divide. That is 5 divided by 8. So I will type into my calculator 5 divided by 8. I get 0.625, and then the calculator stops. This is a terminating decimal, and 0.625 is the decimal for 5/8. 13/6. That's going to be 13 divided by 6. If I type that into my calculator, I'm going to get 2.1666. And the 6 seems to repeat. So I'm going to rewrite that with a bar, 2.16, with only the 6 having a bar over it. All right? One thing I'd like to point out here, 13/6 is the same as the mixed number 2 1/6. If you encounter a mixed number, notice the whole number part of the mixed number comes to the left of the decimal, and the fraction, the 1/6, comes to the right of the decimal. All right, last up I have a really tricky one, 2/7. If you type 2/7 into your calculator, 2 divided by 7, you would end up with this. Now it goes all the way across your calculator, and what I would tell you is there's a good bet that if it goes all the way across your calculator, it's a repeating decimal, not terminating. It'd be pretty coincidental if it was a terminating decimal and it just happened to end at exactly the same number of digits that your calculator is able to display. So I claim this is a repeating decimal. Let's look. I think that the first 6 digits repeat, 2, 8, 5, 7, 1, 4. And then it starts over again, 2, 8, 6. Now I think this should have been a 5, like it was in the first set. The 6 at the end, I think, should be the same as the third number after the decimal of 5. Why do you think it's a 6? Well, I think it's a 6 because the number after the 5, right here, the 7, made the 5 round up when it's the last digit in the number. I think the calculator rounded it up. I think it really would be a 5. This is a repeating decimal, and so it could be written as 0.285714 with a bar over the whole thing. That's really tricky. All right, that's the end of part 1. I'll start part 2 on the next video.